Welcome to the live show with Musart. Today I have Asiya Othman. Osman, I hope it's Osman, isn't it? Yeah.
Othman.
Othman. It's the way it's spelled. It's not my fault. Trust me, you're going to see it at the bottom of the screens in a minute. She is a transformational coach and the founder of MCA, who is here to share her journey that what brought her to this. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I finally got hold of you. You're a very busy lady. So I think I heard your story before at an event, which was quite touching to me actually, and it's a subject that I think is quite sore in the Muslim community, which is wanting to commit suicide, because obviously we know it's haram, and it's just something that's unthinkable and stuff like that. I was really inspired by your story because I think all of us at some point do want to do that. I think when we're going really, really down, but it's just one of those things that I think, our faith brings us back to say it's not allowed and whatever, and obviously the punishments, whatever. But so tell me, from there, how old were you? I think you were about 15, isn't it?
It started around 15, 16,
Yeah.
but I think I actually properly tried to commit when I was around 16 going on to 17.
Right. So what brought you to that? What was going on in your life at the time?
There wasn't anything particularly major. I think I was going through depression, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. Really young, eldest child, and I was just coping. And especially I think in our communities, you get this sense of you just have to keep going. You're not really supposed to talk about feeling low or having bad thoughts, etc. Or if you do, it gets dismissed. It's like, okay, pray more.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you're silly.
Yeah.
You don't have feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a robot.
Precisely, or it's like it's shaitan.
Yes, exactly. Let's blame everything on shaitan, right away. He's the culprit, yeah.
Absolutely. And that was what I was being told. So I kind of shut it off. And I was like, okay, maybe it really is me. Because, you're at that age where you're just discovering yourself. Yeah. And you start to think, okay, you know what? If everyone's telling me this,
I'm in the wrong.
I'm in the wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where I was at that point. So it was like I was 15, 16, just kind of really trying to work with life and GCSEs and trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life and really just bottling things up.
But what was it? What was happening in your family at the time? Was there lots of pressure on you, or?
There was particularly like a lot of pressure, I think, and I think I used to put a lot of pressure on myself as well. And there were obviously times where I felt that I had to live up to something. As the eldest child, it was like you're expected to do a lot, and I always felt like I had no time to be weak. And that was it. It was really that it. My mom was going through personal health issues as well. So it was like, okay, you know what? Who am I to, start complaining? Or who am I to, put even more pressure on my family when my mom's going through health issues? We're just trying to, find our feet and actually continue moving forward. And so I was really good at being the caretaker. It was like...
You were looking after your mum at the time?
Yes, I was kind of looking after the whole family, really. And I put that pressure on myself, the eldest of 7. So for me, it was like, okay, there's no...
7, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How many sisters and brothers?
We are 6 girls and 2 boys.
Oh, wow. Are they the youngest, the boys?
No, one's in the middle, and then the other one is semi-young.
Okay.
He's like the second youngest. So he, the second youngest, and my sister before him, who I think you met at an event.
Yes, she's lovely.
Yeah, so those two
they look like twins.
Yeah, everybody says
yeah.
that. Like when we go out, they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you sure she's not your twin?" Yeah. But she's actually 10 years younger than me.
Wow. Well, you've kept well then.
Yeah. A woman doesn't tell her age.
Yeah, we don't. Trust me. Right, so what was the pressure then? Was it just trying to live up to standards?
It was living up to expectations, living up to standards, and actually just coping with the family pressures, coping with what we were going through at that moment in our lives. And, being the older sister, being the sister, being kind of a mom. I mean, my little sister and brother literally used to call me mom at that point in my life. Because,
was your mom working, or was she?
No, she was going through health issues at that time. So they actually would just crash in with me, sleep with me, and they just literally would call me mum because I was looking after them so much at that point. But it made me, you know, when you have that responsibility on your shoulders, you assume to think that, okay, I'm carrying the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was bottling it up, bottling it up. I mean, 16, I was kind of going crazy in my head at one point. Well, it felt like that. And then at 17, I really couldn't take it. So I tried to commit suicide several times.
How? What pushed you to that edge?
It was just not being able to cope. And there was a point where I actually had a really bad dip where I couldn't sleep.
So it's a bit like you didn't have childhood at all in a way, because you were just expected to help around all the time, and you were just expected to understand your mom's got health issues. Would you say that was the reason, or?
Partly, and because I wasn't really good at talking. Yeah, I was one of those people who just...
Now she doesn't shut up.
Yeah, I don't. It's quite funny because everyone says that now, and I can talk for England
but
now.
you're a very good speaker.
Yeah.
You know, you're a very good public speaker. I've seen you in action. She's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
What was it? So then you said you tried to commit. Something must have hit you to the breaking point.
It was a lot of things. I mean,
you were 16, did you say?
Yeah. So I'd finished high school, and one, I had no idea what I really wanted to do, and I was so confused about it all. Two, I was battling internally. And I think when you get to a point where you just continuously battle with yourself and you're continuously questioning yourself, you start to think, okay, I'm the one who's to blame. I'm the one who's wrong. So maybe if I just took myself out of the equation. So what happened prior to that is I actually left home for a period because I was trying to find myself. So I left home. Parents weren't really, they didn't really want me to, but I was like, okay, I'm going to try and find myself a bit. So I did that, and I got to a point where when I was actually by myself and I had nobody else around me, I think that's when it hit me.
I've had enough.
Yeah, I've had enough. It was to the point where I was like, okay, I really don't want to live anymore. And I was going crazy in my head. I actually remember this. I sat in a corner and I couldn't sleep the whole night.
Was this here or was this?
Yeah, here.
Okay.
So I sat.
Because you've been brought up in Saudi as well.
Yeah, I was born and bred in Saudi.
Yeah.
So this was here, and I remember there was this one particular night, and I actually remember, now it looks like a dream when I look back onto it. But I was sitting in the hallway, and I was by myself, and I was just like, this is it. I was going crazy. I couldn't even sit in a room because I just needed that closet space of just the hallway because I was so frightened of my own thoughts. And it got to a point where I was just like, this is it. And I remember I actually called my mom. My mom still knows, she still talks about this. I called my mom and I said to her, Mom, I'm really sorry if I've ever done anything to hurt you. And I apologized for anything I'd ever done. And I said to her, I really love you. And she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I just went back up and I was just so at ease. Yeah. So I literally just put all the bottles.
So you were saying goodbye?
Yeah, I said goodbye to her. And I think she knew, in a way. Because,
so what bottles did you have? What were they?
So I had antidepressants. So just before I went a bit forward, I actually went to the doctors who gave me antidepressants. And then at that point I had a key worker who was trying to he gave me someone, they
it wasn't working.
No, it wasn't working. So it was actually my key worker who found me. So I took all these bottles, etc.
Just antidepressants?
Yeah, I took the antidepressants, I took paracetamol, I took ibuprofen,
all at once?
I just put them all on the table. I didn't even put them on the table, I put them on the bed, took them all out of the packets, and
They weren't Skittles, Yeah, so you took them out?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I took them out and I watched. It was really weird because it was like a dream. And
did you actually swallow all of these?
Yeah. So I swallowed them. I had to actually get my stomach pumped. And then,
so were you unconscious after this, or?
Yeah, so I was really drowsy. It was early hours and it was.
Do you remember how you felt at the time? Once you had taken them, were you very drowsy?
Not really how I felt. I just felt like it was a very out of body experience. I don't quite know how to explain it to this day. I think even in that talk I was saying that I don't really know how to
explain
because it's been so many years. But it was It was a mixture of being extremely frightened, not understanding yourself, and having all these internal conflicts. Like, obviously, I was Muslim, and I was told that, you're not supposed to kill yourself, and I didn't want to go to hell, but I also didn't want to face my demons. And it's a place that I really wouldn't want to wish on anybody, but you really don't know what to do. So you think this is the easiest route out. Like, this, if I do this,
I don't have to face anything.
then I don't have to face anything, and I don't have to disappoint anyone.
So your key worker found you in your flat, unconscious.
Yep.
Okay, and then next minute you woke up in hospital.
Yep.
Right.
I was then put into a psych ward. I've gone through a lot of counselling, etc. I've gone through many sessions, and there were a lot of things that I had to deal with.
Did your mum question you at the time? Why have you done this? Did they know you tried to commit suicide?
Yep, my parents.
Was she worried when they're like?
Yeah, she was. She was worried, annoyed,
angry,
like
Saudi mothers are.
Yeah. She was just. I think she was
in shock, maybe.
In shock. I think the conversation that we had afterwards is she said, "I don't quite understand why you couldn't come to me." But that's the thing, when you're at that point, you don't think you can go to anybody.
Yeah, and especially I think growing up in the Asian, Middle Eastern or even Asian Pakistani society, I think when we do try to talk to our parents or elders, they think you're not serious.
Yes.
And I understand why they think like that, because they think, okay, you think you got problems, I've got bills to pay. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what's going. They won't see that actually feelings. People have feelings. I think they just think, I'm feeding them, I'm clothing my child. What more can they be asking for?
Absolutely.
And I think, and obviously, I think when we do try to speak about our feelings, they just get really brushed off. Because I've grown up in a family with a very strict mother, and I think when I used to, I used to feel a bit neglected at times. So I was the youngest, but and obviously now, when you grow older and you come into self-development, you understand everything in a better perspective. And I know my parents had come into this country, they migrated, and they were just like, trying to do the best for us. And, if no means no, and you just grow up to believing that, okay, no means, and then you'd be too scared to go back and even ask for anything, because what the reaction's going to be.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, like, they just brush it off and think, it's nothing wrong with you. You're just being silly. Obviously, I think if you went to that stage, didn't that hit the seriousness on the table? Like,
it did.
Asiya is actually having problems.
Our relationship completely changed. After that
You said
point.
you tried several times.
Yeah. So I'd actually tried.
After that, you tried again.
Yeah. So
gosh.
Yeah, so I tried after then. After I'd gone into counselling, also, I didn't want to go on antidepressants. I think actually I felt like the antidepressants were making me feel worse. So
Did they give you a buzz or anything?
No, they made me really numb. It was a weird numb though. It was like,
it makes you quiet, like.
Yeah, and I wanted to. I think I wanted to get it all out. And when you bottle things up for so long.
Yeah.
And you're numb, but you want to get it out, and it's just this conflict of emotion. You're constantly contradicting yourself, and you constantly feel, okay, I feel like I'm two people in one body. And I remember, I write poetry, so my mom actually has a book for pieces of poetry that I wrote when I was extremely depressed, and there are pieces in there that completely just kind of says that I'm two people, and that's how I felt. I felt like I was two people in one body. So one that wanted to get out and express, etc., and one that just wanted to completely die and just kind of end it and be at peace. So it was having these two conflicting thoughts. And I remember explaining that to my mum, and she was shocked, because I don't think she quite understood, as you said, the severity. They don't quite understand. They think, we had it worse. We had no electricity. We had to flee our countries. We had to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
We had to build foundations on migrate and build foundations here so that you.
I personally feel life is more stressful now than it ever used to be, because we are distracted with so many things, technology. I think. And there's one thing I think the older generation don't understand is, I think in their day there wasn't much of a competition.
Yes.
Everything was about just paying the bills. I think nowadays it's like your status, social media. I think is putting lots more pressure on people than it ever has done. So I feel they've had it really easy, to be honest.
Yeah. To them, it was really simple. It was just getting from A to B
Yeah.
and having a family, and then just
Not even being career minded. It was just like,
Yeah.
not even having that push to say, oh, you need to have a career or whatever. I think now everybody's under pressure.
Absolutely.
So honestly, they had it easy.
Yeah, which is what I said. But it was
We had 7 children. I'm one of 7 as
yeah.
well.
Oh, bless.
We had 7 children as well, and but then obviously the 7 kids that they had, they were like 1 year amongst each other, and then so the eldest is the mother of everything.
Yes.
With my sister, she's the eldest. She went through the same thing. She's the eldest, and she was looking after us like her own children.
Yeah.
So I know exactly when I could relate to the same thing. It was the pressure that she had. So, and she ended up being depressed as well because it's always having to live up to that expectation as well. I think it just gets onto you. But anyway, carry on. So you were getting counselling and you told your mum, and what happened? Sorry, you told your mum, and
so I told my mum, and we kind of worked it out, tried to work it through, and then I went from not really fully healing to straight into a relationship. And that was probably the second worst decision I tried to make. And
you got married straight away?
Yeah, so pretty much straight after that, I got married at 18.
18, wow.
Yeah. So I was pregnant with my son at 19.
That's the answer for Asian people, isn't it? The girl is depressed, get her married.
So, and that's the thing.
Throw her husband to take care of her.
Yes.
We don't have to worry about this.
And it's so insane to think of it now, but because they genuinely thought like, okay, you know what? If we push her to get married,
it's not our responsibility anymore.
Yeah, and
quite frankly, yeah.
And it might get her to be more responsible or something. But it didn't make any sense to me because
they're already responsible.
Because I was already quite responsible.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to handle anything.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've only talked about once before. But there was a point in my life after I had my son, or while being pregnant, that I contemplated that I almost had a relapse.
Another breakdown.
Yeah, so I had another complete breakdown. I've talked about my bad relationship. It was extremely violent, and it got to a point where I was in an abusive relationship, and I was pregnant, and I was like, I just had a relapse. And I remember contemplating suicide, and I was halfway across the world thinking, like, how easy would it be just to end it? And I remember thinking, like, at this point I was, trying to pray regularly, and I was like, no, but, I could deal with dying, but I can't deal with being responsible, like being held responsible that I've killed someone. Like, that was just...
because you're pregnant, it stopped you.
And that's why I always say my son is like my savior. So that's why when I mention him, I always say, I think he's the one that saved me, because at that point I was really bad. I was getting beaten regularly, and I was going through such a bad point that I was like, it's so much easier just to leave. But although it would be easy, I was like, this child, or like this gift has obviously been given to me, and I can't be held responsible. Like, that guilt would eat me, even if I died. And so I didn't. But I managed to get out, and that's when I really started working on myself. And it's crazy because it's taken 2 points in my life to really...
hit borderline.
Yeah, to hit that breaking point for me to think, okay, you know what, I need to change. But it just goes to show that even at that point, I didn't feel like I could speak to somebody because I felt like I would be judged. But when I did finally speak to my mom about it, and it was really funny because the younger sister that I spoke to, that you saw, who would pretty much call me mum ever since she was born, I remember she saw me like completely bruised up and beaten, and she was really young. I mean, she's 18 now, so she was, I don't know, 14, 15, a few years ago. Maybe even, she was a lot younger, I think, probably like 10, 11, 12. But I remember she just said, you know what, like, sis, like, she's very opinionated, even to this day. But she was like, I love you, and, it's okay. Like, and I remember having this complete breakdown halfway across the world and thinking, like, I can't go on. Like, I genuinely can't go on. And so when I eventually left, I made a promise that, I would never get to that point. There would never be anything in life that would get me to that point. But it's, as you said, it's such a taboo subject that I didn't actually talk about.
And you're too scared to even say anything. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it. And actually, I didn't even, apart from my mum,
But wasn't your mum guilty that she put you in an abusive relationship? Did she know you were getting abused?
Yeah, she found out later on. I didn't tell her straight away.
Okay, so how long were you married for?
About a year and a half, 2 years maybe.
So what made him so abusive? Would you say was he
He was, I think
anger issues?
Yeah, he had anger issues, probably family issues. Like, now that I can see it, I see that obviously there were a lot of issues that he dealt with in his childhood that he probably thought validated his reactions. And okay, obviously I didn't think of it like that when I was going through everything.
Yeah, obviously, because you don't have that understanding.
I don't have that understanding, absolutely. But now I see it, his mom was in an abusive relationship. His dad is...
So to him, it was normal.
To him, it was normal. And that was it. It was genuinely normal. And it was nothing, like, he knew nothing better. Obviously, when I was in that situation, I didn't quite understand it. But now that, when you take yourself out of a situation, you can kind of see it better.
Yeah.
I realized afterwards that he genuinely thought that that's how you should be reacting. So it was whenever he disagreed on something, or whenever he didn't like something, or whenever I tried to, do anything, his reaction was, okay, I'm just going to beat you to some sense. And that was it. That was life as you knew it.
Was you living in Saudi at the time?
No, I was living in Yemen.
Oh, Yemen. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was it. That was how life was. But I felt so guilty.
He made you feel guilty?
Yeah, he did.
So why would he lash out at you? What would happen? Would it
would be
silly things?
It would be really, really silly things. It would be something as silly as, okay, I didn't do a certain thing that he wanted in a certain way. Or I didn't cook. Or it would be really, really silly, silly things.
So you didn't tell your mother about this at all?
No, because you know what? For once, she seemed quite happy that I was settled. I think she was so worried that I would relapse. And she actually said this to me afterwards. We went, we've sat and talked about this. And she said, I was so scared that I was going to lose you. So I thought, maybe if you were a bit more happier in a stable relationship, etc., it would help you. But, she was the most supportive person when I decided to leave.
Okay.
Which just goes to show that I think for her it was like, okay, I'm just trying to save my daughter. So I think she was...
So what brought the courage up for you to actually admit to her and say, look, I'm unhappy, I want to get out of this relationship?
It was my child. It was that motherly instinct.
Was he 3 months, obviously? Pregnant?
Yeah, he was a few months old. And I remember I got beaten senseless that night, and I rang her crying. And I said to her, like, Mom, that's it. Like,
I've had enough.
I've had enough. And I remember breaking down. I was actually on the road with my baby. Crying on the phone. And I was just like, listen, I'm done. Like, I was breaking down in the middle of the road at night. And I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I knew that point that I had to get out. It was either I get out or I was going to go insane. And I couldn't go back there. Like, I couldn't go back crazy in my head. So I needed to get out.
So she supported that?
Yeah, she was the most supportive person. To this day, she's extremely supportive of anything I do. But she, at that point, I think, recognized that, that's it. There's nothing else that can really save her than for her to find herself. And, I've told her this several times. I said to her that, what, you might have thought that was the best decision for me, but it wasn't. But I still, love you and forgive you for that, because, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with suicide, generally speaking, is we choose to not know in our society. And I think that's why I wanted to speak about it today, because you have to understand that there's a lot of people that have these internal conflicts, especially here in the West, who are being told that, you shouldn't be having these feelings. You're Muslim,
Yeah.
Islam should be enough,
Yeah.
and you know, your prayers should be enough.
Yeah.
And don't forget, shaitan.
Yes.
It's always
He's to blame for everything. Yeah.
everything.
But what we and I think actually, to be honest, we go to the core of Islam, and it's like, if we do study it, it explains a lot about self-development anyway.
Yeah.
Which I think is culture has come and separated that and says, oh, you know what, just blame everything on him, just do your namaz, do your fasting, do your hajj, and you'll be fine. No, it isn't. You need to be spiritually entwined, because if you are close to Islam and stuff like that, even if you are having a breakdown of suicide or whatever, or something, but then at the end of the day, if you have taqwa and if you have, you know, connection with Allah, something that will stop you there and say, look, you know, how would you face your Lord? You know, like in those, I think if they were to teach more things like that, and it would help a lot of Muslims out there, because I think culture has made Islam a fearful thing, whereas it shouldn't be.
Absolutely.
You know, it's actually a beautiful thing. Islam is a beautiful way of living, and if you used to follow it properly, you wouldn't feel depressed. You wouldn't feel, you know, that you're lacking in anything, because in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, you know, if you are grateful, I'll give you more. So I think society has been taken away from appreciating what they already have, which is why we're having problems.
I love the fact that you mentioned the core of Islam being self-development.
Yes.
I mean, that's the reason why I got into self-development. As I started finding myself, I realized that what I was missing or what I was lacking was the core understanding. Because, you know, we're taught Islam in a way where it's very fearful.
Yes.
When it's such a loving religion.
Yeah.
There is answers to everything. But if you don't know the answers, then you fear the unknown.
Exactly.
And what I realized is, and, you know, the reason I became practicing, and, you know, the reason I started wearing my hijab, and, you know, I started praying, and I started actually loving God. Yeah. You know, is because I went through it better. Yeah. And I went through it. And the people would say, you know, like, I remember my sisters would be like, you know, I was sitting there explaining things to them. And I would say, you know what, my love for God came from being completely broken. Yeah. And if I wasn't broken, I don't think I could ever love God the way I do.
You have to go to the extremes of one end to understand the other. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll never understand. Absolutely. So so you're a transformational coach now. Mm-hmm. So what brought you to that journey then? Eventually, you wanted to help others as well, and you know, obviously you broke away from this marriage. Your mother supported you. Then you obviously went back to England, was it? Yeah. You came back to England, and then so you was a single mother for some time then. Yeah. Yeah, and then you wanted.
So I started studying. I started finding myself. Right. Okay. Which was a fun journey. So it included like trying to find myself. So I got heavily into politics. I got heavily into activism. You know, have done wonderful demos and events, and which then took me going back and forth and speaking about drones, and then speaking across the country about and just educating people on different political aspects of Yemen. And I got very heavily political. And not only that, I found myself. I traveled a lot more. And I just took my son with me. So it was this huge experience of taking my son with me. Obviously, there were several challenges because, you know, he went through a few health issues. But it was the most enjoyable aspect of my life because for once, I was just finding my feet. Yeah. And
you could be yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There was no tie downs to what I should be doing. There was no what I should be doing. It was more of like, what can I be doing? Okay. And that's such a liberating feeling. And I didn't actually get into self-development. I think I went through the journey of self-development, but I didn't quite realize it. So, you know, I studied at the London School of Journalism. I love studying different things. So I just went out and did whatever I wanted to do. And then over the years, after being heavily political, I realized I got to a point last year, over a year ago now, where I just had enough. Yeah, about 2 years ago now. And I was like, you know, this is not what I really want to be doing. You know, I love the aspects of politics, but I know I can never make a change the way I want to. And that's when my actual journey into becoming a coach started. And it was the most kind of liberating feeling, like knowing, I mean, you're a coach yourself,
yes.
so you understand.
Yeah.
It
You
was,
can help others.
yeah, that you can actually help others. And
Yeah.
that's when I first actually spoke about suicide. Like the first ever time I spoke about it was last year when I when I decided to share it. And I briefly shared it. And the first time I properly spoke about it was at that event.
Yeah.
That I
That we
saw
met,
you,
yeah.
in May. I think it was in May.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
And that was the first time I actually shared it. And I remember, like, I've shared obviously my domestic
Yes.
violence more in depth before. And I remember getting this message from one particular lady, and she's got a huge following, etc. She messaged me and she said, that's the first time I've actually had someone on social media talk about domestic violence and talk about their
Suicide.
mental health
Yeah.
issues like that. And you know what? I went through the same. And I was so shocked because she contacted me, but I always thought she had it all put together. No, on social media,
Yeah.
as you say, it's
You have to live up to a social status. Yeah.
you have to pretend that everything's
Yeah.
fine, etc. And she shared this beautiful story with me about how she'd gone through what I'd gone through, etc. And she's only just finding her feet now. And I looked at her and thought, my God, there are so many people that are going through mental health issues,
Yeah,
that are going through abusive relationships, that are going through so many hardships.
Yeah.
That get them to a breaking point,
Yeah.
and we don't even see it.
Exactly.
And because we choose not to, under the guise, especially as Muslims, I believe we have a duty
Yeah.
to, it says if you save one person, it's like saving human mankind.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, why is it that we don't use that to get people talking about issues that actually genuinely affect us?
I think the problem is that many people are too afraid to admit it, that they're having a problem. I think that's the main part. I think once you become to the accepting stage, then it gets a lot easier. Then you can think of having solutions and finding solutions. And then there's always help is out there. Any problem you have, help is out there. It's just about coming to the accepting stage and say, I actually have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy feeling this way and stuff like that. And obviously there are antidepressants on the NHS or whatever, but that's just a short-term thing. In the long run, that's gonna do a lot worse than you are now, because you're gonna become so dependent on an external thing than depending on yourself. So then you came and you become the founder of MCA, which is it's not the MCA that you're
No,
IMCA. No, it's not that. It's the Muslim Coaching Academy.
Yeah.
Right? I was about to. The song just played in my head.
When you said that, I was like, I hope she's gonna clarify.
No, you might get a lot of people coming and talking about copyright and saying, "No, we are YMCA. Who are you?" Yeah. So you create the Muslim Coaching Academy, which is helping other coaches.
Yeah.
Coaching coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, run Mindset Transformers with another business partner, coaching, just generally mindset, transformational coaching, and one-to-one clients. But it's amazing what you said, going back to that point of just kind of accepting.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be easier to accept if you knew you weren't going to be judged.
Yes.
There was no elements of judging, and that's what I love about. That is what I love about coaching. It's knowing that you can get a person from A to Z. And as I said, that's the foundation of why I created MCA, Muslim Coaching Academy. Maybe I should just say it was
YMCA.
YMCA. And I actually got into coaching is because I genuinely enjoy helping people. And it's that feeling of knowing that I can help people, not just with mental health issues. Obviously, we coach coaches and we do a lot of personal development mindset. But it's knowing that you've got out of such a dark place that you can help people to completely transform their lives. And that aspect of self-development is, the core of Islam, and is what I practice daily. And I feel like the more I do practice it, the more you kind of fall in love with your religion in a whole new perspective. Because every time you discover something, you're like, oh my gosh, this was already, in my religion, and this was already there, and this was something that I could have used years ago, and it's just
everything finds its feet in its own time. So there's no point beating about the bush as well. I've learned that as well. Like sometimes I think you think, oh, I'm this age now. I wish I knew this 10 years ago. I don't know what it would be, but everything has its time frame, and it's just about accepting that again. It's like acceptance again. Before I forgot to mention as well, you got married again. You're happily married, mashallah. You've got another daughter. You've got a daughter as well. Yeah. So because lots of women out there who wouldn't go into another relationship when they've been through this. So what brought you to realize, not being afraid of your first relationship, because some people will be traumatized and say, I've been with a man, and they lose trust in the men's society, and say, I'm happy to be a single mom, and what brought you to change your mind?
It was a lot of things. One, I'm very close to my son, and we have discussions. I mean, that was the core foundation of my parenting. It was to continuously discuss. So I remember mentioning this to him, and there was a point in his life when he was quite younger, and he was like, saying to him, what would you think of mommy or you having more siblings, etc. And I'm very blunt with him. He does lives, and he has his own mind, and so there was a point in my life where we were quite content. But then I got to a point where I was like, it would be nice to not live forever alone, and it would be nice to have siblings as well for my son, and it would just be nice to have that family atmosphere, and actually
companion.
Absolutely. But it was the companion part that I didn't that was the last on the list. And then I wanted that family environment. I come from a big family. My parents are absolutely amazing, and I wanted that family feel. But I was like, I'm not really sure about the whole companion part, etc. So I took my time in really finding it. But I remember having this conversation with a good friend of mine, and she said, you're always taking risks. You're always traveling. You're always doing whatever you want to do. And when someone tells you can't do it, you go out there and make sure you go and do it, because, just to prove your point. So what are you so scared of? And I remember her asking me this, and I thought, I'm telling people to go out and follow their dreams, and I'm telling my friend to hey, kick everything to the curb and go out and do what you love, but I can't do it myself on that one particular thing. So I started thinking, okay, I'm going to get myself out there, and I did, and I had a few failed meetings set up. Absolutely hilarious meetings. But you know what? When you go through such a bad experience, you know exactly what you don't want.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, that's what I tell women now that, come and ask me the exact same question. I tell them, but you know what? You know exactly what you don't want.
Yeah.
And that is more powerful. Coming from that place as a woman is so powerful.
Yeah.
So just go out there, trust your instincts, and actually get yourself out there, because at the end of the day, marriage is half your deen, and having a loving, family and relationship is core foundations of, Islam. So go out there and actually be confident in the woman that you are and what you bring to the table. You have to be confident enough to be like, I can eat alone, but I'm choosing not to.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when I started coming from that place, I realized I was attracting what I wanted. And eventually, it was just finding the right person that had the same kind of alignment with what I wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
The same goals, kind of what I wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
Which, alhamdulillah, I did find. And it was then being really honest. I think a lot of women are afraid to share what they've been through, because they think that it's not acceptable. But I remember I had this first conversation with my now partner, and my husband. I said to him, listen, this is what I've been through. I told him everything. I was honest from the first meeting. So it was he's either going to completely run away,
or he's going to accept you,
or he's going to accept. But it's coming from that place of not confidence, not just confidence. It's knowing that you accept yourself enough to go out there with all your flaws and scars and your baggage, and knowing that someone else will accept you.
Wow. So that's great, because lots of women would be scared, and mashallah, you've done so well. Before we go, I'd like you to tell the viewers one life-changing tip that you would say that they could apply today, and that they could basically make the massive change that they're looking for. If you want to look at them and then let them know.
I would, oh, one. I would
It
say,
could be two. You're a woman. It's fine.
yeah. I would say the two tips would be to go out there, find what it is that you love to do, irrespective of if that is career-wise or if that is in your personal life. Find what it is that you need to go out and do, and follow that through. Follow it through and pursue it. And the second tip I would say is, enjoy life. Really enjoy life, because I think we tend to complicate it. So go out, enjoy life, and know that, as cliche as it may sound, every day is a new beginning, and every day you have the opportunity to create a magnitude of opportunities and a magnitude of dreams that you can truly accomplish. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. So as we've covered today, if you're having problems, if you're going through suicidal thoughts, please go and get help. Taking those tablets, or even if you're thinking of jumping off the train, on the track, it's not the solution. Go out there. Help is out there. Like, there's so many coaches nowadays, that you can actually talk to. Asiya is absolutely wonderful. You can follow her on Facebook, reach out to me even if you want. We all have problems, just accept that you have them, and trust me, believe in yourself, and you are here for a reason. And until next time, thank you for watching the live show with Musart.